Calaroga Shark Media.
Live from the Democratic National Convention in Chicago, where we don't have to brag about our audience size, this is Ballot.
That's right. We're pretty confident in ourselves. Our audience size is pretty big. Maybe not as big as Obama's, but we do okay. And like Obama, I look good in a tan suit. Anyway, let's hit this. Well, it looks like breakfast at the DNC in Chicago got a little too organic for comfort. Federal law enforcement has launched an investigation after maggots. Yes, maggots were reportedly sprinkled onto the morning spread for delegates at the Fairmont, Chicago. Because apparently, someone thought the best way to send a political message was to add a little extra protein to the eggs. The Fairmont, which probably didn't have dealing with maggot-wielding activists on its event checklist, confirmed that some individuals decided to crash the breakfast buffet with their unsanitary surprise. Both the FBI and Chicago police are now on the case, because when you mess with democracy and breakfast, you're bound to get a serious response. The maggots were smuggled in by activists with a message. And while the DNC's information center was a bit vague, saying some unknown female offenders placed unknown objects on the tables, the rest of us can safely assume those unknown objects were not extra croutons. One unfortunate soul was treated and released on scene. No word on whether they actually got a taste of the maggoty mess, but here's hoping they stick to room service from now on. The Fairmont is hosting delegates from a mix of states, including Indiana, Minnesota, Ohio, Missouri, and South Dakota. So let's hope the only drama left is at the actual convention, not at the breakfast buffet. Governor Tim Coach Walz of Minnesota took the stage last night to accept the Democratic nomination for vice president, delivering a speech that was equal parts folksy charm and Midwestern passive-aggressive digs. Walz kicked things off by labeling Trump as weird and dangerous, which, let's be honest, is like saying water is wet and the sky is blue. But hey, credit to Walz for not mincing words. He's a Midwesterner after all. They've perfected the art of saying, "bless your heart," while plotting your demise. Walz leaned hard on his Midwestern roots, which apparently means that if you can't imagine him grilling brats at a tailgate, he's not your guy. "I'm ready to turn the page on these guys," Walz said, aiming squarely at Trump and J.D. Vance, who, let's face it, are about as relatable as a yacht tax credit. He blasted their agenda as something that only serves the richest and most extreme people in the country. Because nothing screams for the people like tax cuts for billionaires and a healthcare plan scribbled on the back of a cocktail napkin. In true Coach fashion, Walz brought out all the sports metaphors, because why give a political speech when you can pretend you're hyping up the local high school football team? It's the fourth quarter. We're down a field goal, but we're on offense, Walz proclaimed, which is adorable because it assumes anyone in Washington knows how to play offense. He urged everyone to get in the trenches and do the blocking and tackling, because apparently nothing says victory like grinding it out in the political mud, inch by inch, yard by yard. If this campaign doesn't work out, Walz has a bright future narrating highlight reels for ESPN. He wrapped things up with a pep talk that would make even the most apathetic voter consider taking a lap around the block. "When we fight, we win," he chanted, and the crowd, pumped up like they'd just downed a gallon of Gatorade, chanted right back. Meanwhile, Neil Young's "Rockin' in the Free World" blared over the speakers, because nothing says freedom like the sweet, sweet sound of campaign-tested rebellion. Let's be real, following the Obamas and Oprah is like doing stand-up after a headliner. But Walz managed to keep the energy high, even if he's the political equivalent of the guy who still wears his Letterman jacket 20 years after graduation. But hey, Coach Walz made it clear, this is a game, and he's got his playbook ready. Now, if only politics were as simple as running the ball down the field, we might actually get somewhere. I don't know about you, but I'm severely hungover. The hotties for Harris sure know how to party. The crowd at the United Center was politely nodding along as Bill Clinton took the stage, even though his grip on the party isn't quite what it used to be. But hey, when you've been around as long as he has, people still lend an ear, even if they're mentally scrolling through their phones. Clinton wasted no time laying into Trump, That's the bread and butter of any good DNC speech. He did manage to squeeze in a heartwarming story about Kamala Harris's humble beginnings at McDonald's, where apparently she flashed a 1,000-watt smile at every customer while asking, "How can I help you?" Nice touch, Bill, but we're all here for the Trump roasting. He highlighted Harris's prosecutorial record and her big plans to tackle the cost of housing and healthcare, give small businesses a boost, and make sure America isn't ghosted by its allies. But every time the speech threatened to get a little too earnest, he swerved back to the main course. Clinton couldn't resist mentioning how Trump nearly had him croaking during the first debate when he claimed, with the sincerity of an Oscar-winning actor, that nobody respected America anymore like they did when he was president. Clinton, barely holding back the sarcasm, gave Trump credit for one thing: he's a good actor. The kicker? Clinton couldn't help but wonder aloud about Trump's endless tributes to the late great Hannibal Lecter. Because when you're comparing your respectability to a fictional cannibal, you know things have taken a weird turn. Independent presidential candidate Robert F. Kennedy Jr. is gearing up to address the nation this Friday from Phoenix, presumably to explain why his presidential campaign has more twists and turns than a soap opera. His press secretary, Stephanie Speer, took to social media to hype up what she called the present historic moment and his path forward, a phrase that's as vague as it is ambitious. This announcement comes hot on the heels of Kennedy's running mate, Nicole Shanahan, who decided to throw a curveball into the race on Tuesday. Shanahan blasted the Democrats and declared her full support for Kennedy playing a role in a future Trump administration. That's right, the campaign that started out as an alternative to the usual suspects might just end with a warm embrace of the former president. Shanahan even dropped some not-so-subtle hints that their campaign could wrap up early and throw its weight behind Trump, because why not keep everyone guessing? In what feels like a cosmic joke, Trump will be holding a rally in Arizona on the very same Friday, just 20 minutes away in Glendale. Because if there's one thing this election season needed, it's more drama. My crazy ex-girlfriend Norma often texts me, as you may have heard me mention. I texted her back and asked what she thought of RFK. She said, he makes a lot of sense and I'd vote for him. Maybe she has brainworms. That would explain a lot. Like the time I wore my tan suit and she started making fun of me. Well, I have news for someone. That tan suit was pretty darn popular at Hottie's for Harris. Also, stop texting me. You're crazy. President Biden. Remember him? Don't worry, he doesn't either. That's it. There's no Biden story. I just felt like we haven't had enough jokes today. Did I mention I'm hungover? I'm hungover. Former President Barack Obama, the king of cool and shade, apparently went a little rogue during his DNC speech when he decided to throw in a suggestive hand gesture while talking about Donald Trump's obsession with crowd size. According to his former speechwriters, who took a break from their Pod Save America podcast to help him out, it wasn't exactly in the script. Yep, Obama, who's usually as smooth as buttered silk, decided to ad-lib what many saw as a not-so-subtle reference to Trump's, let's just say, manhood. Jon Favreau, one of Obama's former speechwriters, podcast co-host, and possibly the worst labor negotiator of our time, giving his producers 9 weeks vacation and 12-hour nap breaks, spilled the beans on this after the speech, joking that his co-host Dan Pfeiffer was the mastermind behind the manhood joke. But hold up. Favreau clarified that the hand gesture wasn't pre-planned. Just so you all know, that was just in the moment, he said, probably while imagining all the conservative pundits losing their minds. And then John Lovett, another former Obama joke writer, and also apparently a terrible labor negotiator, giving his producers 9 weeks vacation and 12-hour nap breaks, chimed in, suggesting that maybe, just maybe, Obama knew exactly what he was doing with that little hand dance, but only he was in on the joke. Classic Obama, always one step ahead, leaving the rest of us to catch up. On a slightly more serious note, the Pod Save America crew did admit that they found Obama's speech to be one of the most persuasive of the DNC so far. And why? Because it wasn't just about preaching to the choir. As Pfeiffer put it, Obama's speech didn't assume that the only thing keeping people from voting Democrat is ignorance. No, it was about understanding that everyone's got their reasons. Even if those reasons are, let's be honest, sometimes a little questionable. Favreau also gave props to both Barack and Michelle for treating Trump like the clown they believe him to be. The way to go after an autocrat or a strong man, Favreau explained, is to just make them seem foolish. And if there's one thing Trump can't stand, it's being laughed at. Well, mission accomplished, Mr. President. Obama then asked for a $10,000 raise, 11 weeks vacation, and 15-hour nap breaks, to which Lovett and Favreau immediately said, sure. Portions of today's program were made with 8 beers, a few too many shots, 4 hours sleep, and the help of AI.